Thank you very much, Emmanuel. I will try and give you the views also of Europe versus the rest of the world. Being present in 130 countries, we do see that things happen differently across the world. Let me just reshape quickly the challenges and the context. We have no choice but to invest in next generation networks. One of the biggest reasons is our major challenges is the very rapid growth of mobile data traffic. Could sound strange, but the future, of course, is mobility. But the future of mobility is fixed because of this scarcity of spectrum. Because we're going to experience, we have not well anticipated the huge surge of mobile data explosion. Today, about only 20% of mobile internet, mobile phones are internet enabled. In 5 years, 80% will be, and something like 70–80% of the traffic in 5 years will be video. How will we accommodate, without again fighting some battles to gain more spectrum, this huge need for more capacity without offloading as soon as we can on revisiting the architecture of the mobile networks through smaller cells, picocells, and behind that it will be fixed fiber networks. First reason. And first big issue of context. Of course, the cloud and the video fixed uses, of course, will also drive the need for investment. So people who say we don't need it, we don't see it, there is no appetite, that's a short-term view. Second element of context. The traditional, say, service providers are under real pressure. Governments also. With less government money, but there is a real disruption of the business models, especially due to the difficulty for service providers to monetize this data, and the rise of new dynamic new entrants who are the over-the-top players. And one of the reasons said or put forward by service providers to say we can't afford these, and it's true that there's no single operator that said, I will alone cover 80% of my country, or it will take such long time, that these dynamic over-the-tops take out of the networks a lot of the value. So, third, it's true that we have good copper in Western Europe, and that's not a great, and people are quite happy, especially in dense areas, not in less dense areas. So the take-up rate is bigger, and it's perhaps a mistake to have started by dense areas, in fact, because the take-up rate is much faster in less dense areas. So the transformation from copper to fiber is, but usually we have got good copper, so what's the use? But that's a short-term view also, for these reasons that we will need new investment, both in the core and in the access, and the future competitiveness of our economies and the social development of our society. If we wake up in 5 years and don't see or don't even consider what's happening in Eastern Europe, or in Russia, or in China, or in other countries, or in the old, in Asia, then we will wake up and have the foundation and have rested on our laurels in Western Europe. So what is the solution? Considering this and seeing the numbers and the slow, the difficulty to trigger the rollouts, we decided to, EU, the Commission decided to launch an initiative. So we tried and find out, and about 40 companies, and for 4 months we really worked hard to see what could be the solutions. I'm not going to be too long on this, but basically, what are the solutions to make things change? And what are the two visions that we can have, or the various visions? The first one is, yes, we do need new business models. Europe is too fragmented. Perhaps our service providers don't have enough scale versus the over-the-top, so new business models, and that's all the debate on net neutrality, which is not the debate of this roundtable, but we definitely need perhaps new business models, and it's a two-sided market. So new networks should be funded through both a little more contribution from the over-the-tops, and also probably our prices are too low to fund the fiber. So these were the two the conclusions of some of the working groups. The last working group was on which investment models and how attract investment funds. We decided to invite EIB, but also other funding institutions around the table to see what could be done. And analyzing, almost everybody agreed that on 80% of the territory, what was at stake was the financing of a new infrastructure, which basically was 80% of the cost was in the first layer, which is a long-term investment. It will last 50 years, the passive layer. It has 15 years rate of return. The above layer, which is the second, the active equipment, which is what we sell as vendors, is 5 years rate of return. So totally different, can't be funded the same way. And the service provider is, of course, in competition with the third layer, which is the World Wide Web, which again has totally different economic characteristics. That's what a service provider in telecom is. It's 3 layers which has very different characteristics. And what we talk about is how to fund this first layer, which, apart from the countries where you have platform competitions, which are very limited, which are in some countries, and again, European countries are not equal on this basis. Everybody around the table agreed that on 80% of a country which has no strong cable, the question was, how do we fund one platform, passive first layer, where we can have active competition on top? But it's not said, and I think it's part of the problem. Now, when we see it, how it happens around the world, and what are the different investment models, we see 3 various areas in the world. The first one is Eastern Europe, or countries that are less developed, have less copper, that leapfrog Russia, China, Eastern Europe massively, and making a good use of European funds. They leapfrog because they have lousy copper. So, second, we have countries with strong public vision, not necessarily strong public funds, but strong public vision. This first layer is, yes, I declare, it is an essential infrastructure, and to be very honest, the infrastructure funds love this. But then it's a disruptive model, and our service providers, we know, don't like it. What's happening in Australia, that's an exception with huge public money. New Zealand is with much less public money, much less, but it's that kind of a model. It's netcos with active competition of top, or Singapore. What's happening in Europe when we see that? Fragmented. What we say is, no one size fits all. Each country has its own, and it's true, has its own history. No one technology fits all. Yes, it's all about fiber deeper, but why not DSL, VDSL, so no choice, basically, it's true. And funds are a little, or financial institutions are a bit, they say, well, why should I invest there? And there is no clear where, because there is no assertion that it's an essential infrastructure that everybody should use and that should be funded. It's not said, because I think there is a wrong assertion of infrastructure competition, still a dream that you can have passive infrastructure competition, which is not the case. So these 2 visions were clearly put forward in our group. The first vision is, let the market alone. Don't disrupt with a public vision, not public fund, because it's a public initiative is not synonymous with public money necessarily, or public funding. It's not the same. So there's a first confusion. Of course, you need to have a little public money to trigger a model, but you don't need to fund it all. So the first vision was, let the market do, which leads to a vision where you have no big disruption, and that's what's happening massively, I think, is that you have a long-lasting dependence on one network, but that is rolled out by one, and a so-called co-investment. I was the first one when I was regulated to call that co-investment. It's a de-risking of the infrastructure of one by selling indivisible right of use. The second vision, more disruptive, is which you need a real co-investment triggered neutral in the passive layer, but that might reshuffle the equilibrium. And this were bigger positions, of course, to this model. And we see it happening on local basis in Europe. And we see that locally, for instance, in Germany. And I think it's not the end of the story, because we see some even incumbents increasingly interested in partnering with in such, especially in the less dense areas. So I think we will come up in Europe with a fragmented, because there's no real policy vision. There is different realities of the markets, but I think it won't necessarily reshuffle totally the equilibrium of the market today. Thank you.